This morning, we're shining a spotlight on the latest developments in the Delphi murder case, focusing on the defense attorneys, as prosecutors want to get Richard Allen's defense attorneys held in contempt. These prosecutors say that Allen's newly reappointed attorneys, Brad Rosie and Andrew Baldwin, have violated the court's gag order and were grossly negligent for being at fault for crime scene photos being leaked to the public, which the state says has caused irreparable harm to the victims' families. In their motion, prosecutors allege the press release and the two occasions of leaked information show a trend by defense counsel of not being completely honest with the court, violating the court's gag order set in place to protect the integrity of the case, and failing to comply with the protective order put in place to protect the discovery in this case. Well, now, we're hearing from one of Richard Allen's former attorneys in a Court TV exclusive interview. Public defender William Labredo stepped down as counsel earlier this month after the state Supreme Court decision, and he's therefore no longer bound by the gag order. Court TV documentary producer Barbara McDonald was the only person that he spoke to, and she is on the couch with me this morning. A wonderful journalist you are, and really, I like to say you are our in-house expert on the Delphi cases. This is something you have researched, written about, done interviews on for many, many years.
Yes.
This is really quite a feather in your cap that he's talking exclusively to you, Barbara. Tell us what was the most stunning thing to you that he shared, please.
I think how emphatic he is in his belief that Richard Allen is innocent, not just not guilty, but that he's innocent of these charges and not involved at all, according to Bill Labredo. That was a bit surprising to me, you know, and I pushed back on that a bit. Like, you know, you're a defense attorney, that's your job, right? To say that. And he said he has handled murder cases. He's handled probably 100 murder cases in his career. And he says he doesn't say that very often. And he's never felt as strongly about a client's innocence as he does in this case.
Wow, Barbara, that says something. It really does. And the fact that you pushed him too, and you were like, well, you're not just saying your client's not guilty, you actually really believe that he's not guilty. And he even used the word innocent with you, not
innocent.
going a step beyond.
Yes, 100% innocent is what he said.
Wow.
We also talked about a lot of other things connected to the case, including the theory of odinism, that was floated by the original defense team. They've now been reinstated. But they said in some of their filings that they believe that white supremacist members of this odinistic cult are responsible for the murders. And I asked him about that. And here's a little bit of what he had to say.
I thought it was hocus pocus. I honestly didn't, I'd never heard of it. And the more I got into it, that's a real thing. It is a real thing, and it's scary.
In what way?
Well, I believe they sacrificed a girl and killed another one. Some of the people that live in Delphi were very brazen about their odinistic beliefs on their Facebook pages and other social media accounts, including the sergeant who was in charge of keeping Mr. Allen safe in Westville.
You described one of those officers that's mentioned in one of Rosie and Baldwin's filings, Sergeant Jones, who was wearing patches that said, "In Odin we trust," on his Department of Corrections uniform.
Yep.
The judge ordered the warden to make them stop. And then what did you notice?
That Mr. Jones had a tattooed under his right eye. From the best we can tell, it looks a lot like Odin's spear. And he had several tattoos on his forearms, including the interlocking triangles that are on his Facebook post. I got to give credit to Mr. Rosie and Mr. Baldwin that, you know, they picked up on that. We saw him, and, you know, confinement officers at the Allen County Jail aren't even allowed to have facial hair, let alone facial tattoos. I was a little miffed that the warden allowed that, or, you know, he even knew what it was.
That was one of the things that surprised me, too, is that it was the same guard, according to Bill Libredo, that had the patch, was told to stop wearing it, and then comes to work with the tattoo under his eye.
Oh, Barbara, as I'm watching that, my jaw dropped. Something else that's interesting that you asked him about, when he's telling you he believes in that legal theory, he wasn't the first attorney to put it forward. As you know, it was the first set of defense attorneys who are now back currently Richard Allen's defense attorneys. And as we know, attorneys don't always agree on a legal theory in a case. To me, that really says something, that there may be some substantive value in it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and he said that, you know, their defense strategy would have been probably a little bit different than Rosie and Baldwin, but not too different. They were also preparing a Frank's memo for a Frank's hearing, alleging that there were, you know, problems with the information that was used to obtain the search warrant for Richard Allen's home. So it sounds like they were following a similar path, if not, you know, not identical, but a similar path for sure.
Close, right? With the odinism theory being at the heart, that someone else carried this out and that this brutal killing of those beautiful children was done by someone practicing Odinism.
Exactly, and that's what, you know, I think when that first Odin memo dropped, we were all like, Odinism, what is that, right? And I think for a lot of people it was, there's no way that that could be true, and this is somebody who looked into it, who at first said, no, I don't buy that either. But then after getting into the case, he had it for 79 days as lead counsel, and he says there's something there.
Wow. Barbara, I know that obviously as an attorney, any communications he had with Richard Allen, as you know, are privileged, but he can certainly describe, you know, how he was doing in jail or what he saw. The appearance, I know, has been so stunning to so many people, the dramatic weight loss. Tell us what he shared with you about that. If
he said that he is improving some mentally and physically, but that it is still very difficult for him. He dropped from 206 pounds at his arrest to about 122 pounds at his lowest. He says he's still probably in the 130 to 140 range, so definitely much lower than what he had been. He described him as calm, very soft-spoken, very engaged in his defense, and very kind and appreciative to the people working on his defense.
Wow. You know, it sounds like even though there was so much disruption and we saw such a bitter legal battle playing out all the way up to the state Supreme Court, you were there, you know, watching things. Even though that all happened, it seems that there was so much civility among these lawyers who were appointed for a brief time and then have left. It seems like there's no animosity, is there, between them and the original attorneys?
Yeah, he had high praise. He said if there's anything he can do to benefit them and their case, he's happy to take part in that. You know, he feels that Richard Allen is in very capable hands, even though he would have liked to have stayed on the case. He said it's very rare that you get a high-profile case where you really believe your client is innocent, and that's where he was. But he says, you know, he absolutely is willing to do whatever he can. I know that, you know, legality-wise, it's a little dicey now at this point, but he wants to see Richard Allen get a fair trial. And he also believes that Judge Fran Gull is the secret to that fair trial. He thinks she's the right judge for this case.
And now she's been appointed is it the chief judge in her division, Barbara? Wow, so, which is a huge nod from her colleagues. I mean, that must say so much about her.
He said she's one of the most qualified judges he's ever worked with. He's been arguing before her for 2 decades or more, and says she's absolutely the judge who's going to ensure that Richard Allen gets a fair trial, which is what he says he wants.
Yes, and he certainly has that right, as you know. Barbara McDonald, I can't wait to see all of your interview. Thank you for the preview.
Closing arguments.
Yes.
Yep. And then there's also going to be a story going up on courttv.com with some more information from my talks with him.
Beautiful. You've been doing a great job with the writings that you put up on our website and all the information you are sharing. Barbara, thank you so much.
Julie.
And again, a big reminder, you can watch all of Barbara's exclusive interview with Richard Allen's former court-appointed attorney, William Libredo, tonight, 8 p.m. on Closing Arguments with our